Welcome back to River Valley Chronicle. I'm your guest host, Abby Peel. We're still here at the Woodlands here on the campus of Alice Peck Day in one of their sample units, which I encourage everyone to come down and take a look at. I'm here with Dr. Ivan Tomek. He is an orthopedic surgeon at Alice Peck Day. Thanks for joining me.
You're very welcome.
And we should mention you're fresh in and out of surgery today, which is, I think, exciting. I don't know if you think that's exciting.
Yeah, I'm between cases, and so after this I'll walk back down and continue working.
So let's talk about orthopedic surgery at Alice Peck Day. What are some of the real cases that you see come through?
So orthopedics in general is any surgery that involves bone and muscle and joints. And so it includes everything from spine surgery to hip and knee replacement to hand surgery to sports-related surgery for sports injuries. And so we've got a growing department. We now have 4 orthopedic surgeons and 3 physician assistants, each with their area of specialty. My specialization is hip and knee replacement. My colleague John Hood does mostly sports and shoulder and knee. Leonard Rudolph, who is sort of our senior member, has been here a long time, does spine surgery and joint replacement. And Diane Riley, who specializes in hand and wrist surgery and upper extremity surgery. And then we have 3 physician assistants working with us. Physician assistants these days are really critical to us being able to provide access to patients. They do everything from cast changes to injections, prescribing medications, and physical therapy for people who need help. And so at APD, we're trying to really focus on providing services in those areas. In joint replacement, we do a lot of cases every year. We also treat arthritis non-operatively. Arthritis is a condition that afflicts a lot of Americans. There's no cure at this point, and so the best we can do is control symptoms with anti-inflammatories, weight loss, exercise. And when all those things stop working, then we turn to joint replacement as a means of putting a metal and plastic joint in place of the original joint. And while that's sort of a last resort, thankfully it's very successful. About 90% of people who have a joint replacement are happy with the results and are able to get back to activities like skiing, hiking, snowshoeing. Pretty well everything except for running. Running is the one thing we discourage patients from doing with a joint replacement.
And that's important around here with all that we have, all the different activities that people can do around here in the Upper Valley.
Absolutely. I am amazed at people I see who are retired and have been retired for quite some time and are still in the ski patrol. You know, I have people telling me last year I skied 95 times on my new hip. So, you know, the sort of stereotype that people are getting less active as they get older, I don't think holds true around here.
Something we teased earlier saying that you would talk about, and I'm just going to ask you directly what it is because you're going to be the one that's going to just be so informative for me, is direct anterior hip replacement. Right. What is it?
Yeah, so hip replacement has been around since the late 1950s, and it's come a long way since then, not only in the materials and the technology, but also how we get to the hip. So in order to get to the hip joint, if you just sort of feel around your own hip, there are muscles on every side of that joint. And so inadvertently, the older techniques would traumatize the muscles, either by cutting them or by stretching them to the point where there was some damage that occurred to the muscles and it was painful. And so direct anterior hip replacement has now been around in the United States for probably 6 or 7 years. And what it is a technique to get into the hip from the front of the hip. If you imagine just under your sort of front pant pocket, it's an incision, a cut that's about 4 inches long. Wow. And instead of cutting muscles, what it does is it goes through a little tiny space, almost like between 2 curtains, and it pushes each muscle to the side. In doing so, it causes a lot less pain because it doesn't traumatize the muscles. And compared to the older techniques, and look, I've been around long enough that I've done the older techniques, and the difference is just incredible. The long-term result is probably the same. In other words, a year after surgery, somebody who has a direct anterior versus one of the older techniques are probably about the same. But in the first 3 to 4 months, there's really a world of difference. There's less pain. Importantly, I think there's much less chance of the ball popping out of the socket, and anybody who has friends who have had hip replacements has probably heard of somebody who's had a hip replacement where unfortunately the ball comes out of the socket afterwards. And by going from the front and by not cutting the muscles that pull the ball into the socket, the chance of having a dislocation is much lower. In my experience, it's been about 1 out of 400 people compared to the older techniques, which were about 1 or 2 out of 100 people. And so this is an operation, the direct anterior hip replacement, that we do here a lot. The patients, the surgery typically takes an hour, 15 minutes. There are times when we have to tell people to maybe lose some weight, get some better diabetic control, stop smoking. Those are some of the things that make the surgery safer for patients. You know, some of the risks of surgery, whether it's a hip or abdominal surgery or anything else, is the risk of an infection. And things like poorly controlled diabetes and cigarette smoking and obesity increase that risk. And so I think increasingly patients are going to find that when they talk to orthopedic surgeons, they're going to be encouraged to get themselves in shape, so to speak, for the surgery.
Really fascinating stuff. If I were to come back in a next life, I'm going to be a trauma nurse, so I love this stuff.
Oh, good. Well, you know, it's not too late. You could still do it in this life.
I don't know. I don't think I could do any of what you do. But no, this is extremely informative, and we've just loved having our time here at Alice Peck Day and learning more about the orthopedics part of Alice Peck Day as well. Dr. Tomek, I really appreciate you being here.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you. For more information, you can visit the website on your screen for Alice Peck Day.